Well, let's see. I guess I'll say good morning. It's a hot one, isn't it, today? Already we're breaking into a little sweat here, but I think we're going to make it. We're just having one early service this morning so we can get on home and stay in a cool place. But I'm trying to talk over the noise of fans today. I hope can you all hear me today? Everybody can hear me? Good, good. Thank you for showing up. This is a special service that we have every year, and every year in my ministry, actually. So towards the end of the year, instead of having a sermon, I like to field questions and see what type of questions will be asked. And we've already gotten quite a few from people who've sent them in online, but hopefully you've had a chance to write down a question you might like to ask the minister about Unitarian Universalism, this congregation, my thoughts on particular issues and stuff. And if I can respond, I will. And it's always an exciting time. I sort of call it improv from the pulpit, and I sure look forward to fielding the questions and see where we go with that. So, but I just want to welcome you today, and I want to encourage everybody to stay cool today. I think this might be the hottest day on record in Salem history. I don't know if it's, yeah, people are shaking their heads. And so please, please, please do remember to take care of yourself, look out for others around you, make sure that everybody's staying hydrated and cool so that we all do remember to take care of ourselves. And thank you for coming out in the heat on this Sunday morning. It's so good to see you. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you.
Our gathering hymn today is God Who Fills the Universe. It's number 37 in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body or spirit. God who fills the universe, from the atom to the stars, make firm my changeful heart, so I may do my part and bring joy to all the earth. God who webs the universe with amazing mysteries, make glad my fragile soul, so I can see life whole and bring hope to all on earth. God who keeps the universe by the truths of living love, make strong that love in me, so I can set it free and bring peace to all on earth.
Whatever race I dream of.
Brent, my name is Barbara. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. May we say our affirmation together. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Light, fire, heat, awesome and breathtaking. May they hover just close enough to warm our hearts, to energize our love of self and of each other. With these images in mind, let us light our 3 chalices. The first is for the congregation, our congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light our second chalice for our partner church in Šimenfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And our third chalice is for our children and youth here and around the world. Let us sing our flame into life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Now we have a wonderful new tradition where the children from RE are coming to do a little exchange. They are bringing with them rocks that have been painted with a special message and taking back their lantern. And Rick will read the message.
Take a moment now to just be in this moment. Feel yourself as a living being in this wonderful universe. As you breathe in, center yourself. As you center yourself, you become more aware of the feelings of compassion. Compassion for our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors. And yet, compassion goes further. Martin Luther King Jr. standing with his followers, looking at those who opposed them. And he told his followers, you do not like them, you do not have to like them, those who oppose you. You do not have to like them. But you do have to love them. You have to love them. King was following in the footsteps of Gandhi, who always taught us never to return violence for violence, whether it's physical or psychological. Gandhi was inspired by Jesus of Nazareth, who challenged us to love our enemies. Centuries earlier, the Buddha was offering the antidote to hatred and anger. The antidote is boundless compassion, infinite compassion. And as we live in this world full of people we love and people who challenge us and disturb us, upset us, and anger us, let us remember that this great faith of ours calls for us to stretch our hearts, to have compassion for everyone. Let us be mindful of our lives and the gifts that flow to us. Let us not be unmindful of the blessings that come unearned. Our lives are gifts. We put in a penny and withdraw gold bars. Our efforts are meaningful, and yet there is so much more. There is so much more that blesses us. And on this day, I invite you to be aware. Be aware of gifts that flow into your life. Food and shelter, love and laughter, beauty and joy, hope, dreams, love. For all these things, we are grateful. We are deeply grateful. For gratitude is our path, and compassion. Gratitude and compassion, these are our shining stars that guide us down the path. Amen.
You may share your joys and concerns by going to the website and going to worship and clicking on joys and concerns and type them in. That is one of the ways we participate in community. Thank you.
Our pastoral hymn today is Come My Way, My Truth, My Life. It's number 89 in the Gray Hymnal.
We're taking a little pause here as we collect questions that have been posed by the people that are here with us so delightfully here in person, even in this bit of a greenhouse we're in. Just don't move much. A little fanning is good. not to worry. If you don't have a question, I think you will enjoy others and be delighted with what the variety of questions.
And now for our pastoral hymn, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life, number 89 in the Gray Hymnal. You may remain seated.
Come my way, my truth, my life, such a way as gives us breath, such a truth as ends our strife, such a life as killeth death. Come my light, my feast, my strength, such a light as shows a feast, such a feast as mends in length, such a strength as makes a guest. Come my joy, my love, my heart, such a joy as none can move, such a love as none can part, such a heart as joys in love.
To set the stage for Rick's generous and courageous tradition of answering your questions without any notes, I call on Rumi, the Sufi master and Persian poet, to light your imaginations with these provocative questions. If you can't go to sleep, my dear soul, for tonight, what do you think will happen? If you pass your night and merge it with dawn for the sake of the heart, what do you think will happen? If the entire world is covered with the blossoms you have labored to plant, what do you think will happen? If the elixir of life that has been hidden in the dark fills the desert and towns, what do you think will happen? If, because of your generosity and love, a few humans find their lives, what do you think will happen? If you pour an entire jar filled with joyous wine on the head of those already drunk, what do you think will happen? Go, my friend, bestow your love, even on your enemies. If you touch their hearts, what do you think will happen?
So I just want to say at the outset that I probably will have more questions than I'll have time to answer. And I always keep the questions because it helps me discern what I'll be speaking on during the coming year. So even if your question doesn't get answered today, know that it's getting fed into the system, and I'll be glad to respond in one way or another at some point in time. So let's just get started. Are you ready? Here's a question. When I consider the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and in society at large, I can't help but feel uneasy, particularly when I consider the democratic process in society at large. I've noticed several state legislatures around the country using legal democratic means to limit voting rights, reproductive rights, and a host of other liberties. Tying this political climate to my right of conscience only serves to affirm that people I disagree with have the same right of conscience I have. Plus, they have a political machinery moving that democratic process in a direction that I detest. Can you speak to how you interpret the fifth principle? Do you struggle with this principle too? This is the fifth principle of Unitarian Universalism is we covenant to affirm and promote the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. And what they're speaking to is a weakness in democracy. Every system of government has forms of weaknesses, and in democracies is that there is a possibility of mob rule if you have democracy such that a majority can tyrannize a minority. It was the French observer who came here, I'm trying to think of his, de Tocqueville, noted that this was the great weakness in our system, the tyranny of the majority, pushing democracy in undemocratic directions. You see the same thing happening in other countries where fundamentalist groups will come into power through democratic means and then use that to oppress democracy. I think that what we're faced with now is a problem that's larger than democracy by itself can solve. We need to find common ground. We need to avoid polarizing rhetoric. We need to remember that democracy has to rest on a foundation of trust. Otherwise, it won't stand up. You can have the most perfect system, but if people don't trust one another, then it's going to be problematic. And so I'm aware of it's a lack of trust that's leading people to try to limit the vote. They're afraid of what's going to happen in the future. I think we really need to come into more dialogue, create opportunities for us to turn down the heat and the rhetoric and recognize that it's patriotic to find common ground with other people. This is a really complicated question, and I'll probably be thinking about it and talking about it in more ways, but I have other questions to get to, so let me move on. What has been the impact of COVID on the Unitarians in Transylvania? I should just preface this question. Some people might not realize, most people in fact in the world don't realize that the oldest Unitarian churches in the world are in Romania, the country of Romania, and also in Hungary, area mostly in the Transylvanian region. And so we've been over there a couple of times. I've been over there twice, and some of the members of the congregation have been over there. So we have a partner Unitarian church in a small village in Simonfalva, Romania. It's beautiful. We've been there before. And anyway, we do know that I got the answer because it's written right here. My good friend Reverend Shandor says that 3 people have died to COVID in Simonfalva, and two of them were Unitarians, and so it has hit them some. It's a small village of about 1,000, so it's probably been a hard time for them, just as it has been for us. Are there socio-political ethnic disagreements among Transylvanian Unitarians? There are, I think, similar tensions, maybe slower in coming in Transylvanian Unitarianism that you also we dealt with earlier in Unitarian Universalism in America. I'm thinking, for example, of same-sex unions. This is a very traditional part of the world, and a lot of social and political evolution was sort of frozen by various historical conditions that placed them in a different place with us in some of the issues. And so I know that some of the younger generation Unitarians are struggling on some of the issues, and their elders might not completely agree with them on things such as is the one I just mentioned. But I don't think there are any significant disagreements that are tearing them apart. There's certainly no ethnic disagreements. They're all of one ethnic group. So it's a small world over there. What do you think of the Reverend David O. Rankin and how he has influenced you? David Rankin was the minister that I first approached when I was considering entering the ministry many, many years ago. And he was a minister at the Unitarian Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember going into his office and telling him about my possible dream of entering the ministry. And I was kind of nervous because he didn't really know me all that well. But after a short conversation, we connected, and he was willing to offer me his support. He has a book of sermons that I've always kept throughout my career. He could write an entire sermon in poetry, and you would get it, and you would love it, and you would be influenced by it. So his style of sharing, his style of personal sharing of his life is a way to not talk about himself, but as a way to illuminate larger points about life. His way of disclosure, his use of humor from the pulpit definitely influenced me. I saw that you could get away with being funny and you could keep your job as a minister. David is I think still living and retired, living in Idaho. So it's always an amazing thing to think about the teachers and the mentors that helped make you who you are. We really are not isolated individuals, and we are really touched and inspired by different people who really help us realize who we're called to be. And David Rankin was one of those people for me. So thank you for that question. How does the use of a monophonic chant or singing enhance spiritual well-being? Do you think it is useful in today's world? Well, you've come to the right place. I am an expert on this subject, and I used to be in a Buddhist community in my early 20s, and we would do chanting, one syllable at a time, flat tone, and we would chant together. And there's something about chanting, singing. If you can do it with other people, that's even more wonderful. And I really look forward to the choir coming back. But there's something about chanting that puts your consciousness, focuses your mind and your consciousness in a certain particular way. If you are chanting a particular thing that has deep meaning, compassion for all beings, that saying that and repeating that is a way of grounding yourself. And so I think it's a practice that you'll see adopted by religious, spiritual people all over the world. And so I think it is useful. I've actually thought we might get the Buddhist group in here on some Sunday and we'd do some chants together. I thought that would be really interesting and fun. So stay tuned for that. We probably wouldn't. If you hadn't been a Unitarian Universalist minister, what other occupation may have interested you? Well, I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do. There was only, when I went to the vocational placement center in the university to determine what I should be, there's a chart and a graph that showed where your interests lie and where you would function well in the world. And ministry or the clergy, being a member of the clergy, were just like so. I'm pointing like this because it was a chart, and they were like Himalayan mountain peaks, and it didn't look like there was a second choice, something else I might have done. I tried out school teaching for a while and have profound respect for school teachers. I just can't quite handle that. I thought of working with older senior citizens. I volunteered in the gerontology unit in social agency in Atlanta for a while, just to explore that and see if that would work out. And it was good. I liked that, caring for senior citizens. I looked at journalism. I thought, well, I like to write, but then I decided not in journalism. So really, some sort of a work, music would have been something. If I had discovered classical music earlier, I could imagine I would have loved a career in some form of music. So those are some ideas. But basically, I can only be a minister. Thank you for letting me be one. It's the only thing I can do. So, what is the definition of God? There's an easy question. Should be able to dispense with that one rather quickly. God is a word that it gets projected onto. When I say God, I have a particular image. When a fundamentalist who believes in a particular doctrine and creed says God, they're getting a different image. When a Muslim fundamentalist or a liberal Muslim says Allah, they're actually maybe envisioning two different things. God is a concept that really throws us for a loop in so many ways, and really makes us think about the origins of life, how we got here, who we are. Is there a benevolent creative force, or is it all just accidental mixing of chemicals and life has come into being? And so I think that it's a concept that can be helpful and can also be not so helpful. I think it can be helpful to have an image of God where you consider that to be a profound mystery beyond your understanding, and that you have a sense of wonder and trust, but you don't have a comprehension of the mind and the will of that which is greater and transcendent to you. I think the danger of the idea of God is when people start imagining that they know what God thinks and feels. And Thomas Paine noted that a belief in a cruel God makes for a cruel person. So the kind of God you believe or don't believe in has profound implications for your life and your spiritual life. It can make you either kinder or more loving, or it can make you more narrow-minded and hateful. Whether or not there is an entity, a reality that we could call God or not, I'm gonna see if another question turns that up, because I don't want to dwell on one question exclusively. But in Unitarian Universalism, we don't require that you affirm assent in a supreme being, because we absolutely respect freedom of conscience and people's right to discern higher truths as they will. We were talking a lot about the difference between bad and evil on the way here. How would you define bad versus evil? Bad versus evil. That's an interesting distinction. Bad versus evil. I'm used to distinguishing good versus evil, but bad versus evil is a distinction that I've never really focused on very much. So let me think about this one for a second. Bad sounds like just a behavior. You're acting bad today. If you're acting evil today, that sounds like a lot more troublesome and problematic. The thoughts about evil are all over the map theologically. If you look at the world religions and their understanding of what evil actually is and does it exist. And to simplify, I think you could say that in the Eastern religious traditions, mostly Hinduism and Buddhism, evil is seen as stemming from ignorance, avidya, ignorance. You're not aware of the interconnectivity of things. In the Judeo-Christian Islamic traditions, the Abrahamic traditions, I think that evil is thought of as in a different way, as a more disturbing mystery that can't really be accounted for, especially if you believe in an all-loving, all-powerful God. Where does evil come from? But the difference between evil and bad is, I would say that evil is an expression of something profoundly harmful and dangerous, whether regardless of its origin, whether you think in terms of Eastern or Western religions. But evil versus bad, I think of bad as just, you're off track here, but you're not fundamentally off track. You're just being bad today. So stop it, okay? What most inspires you? I'm inspired by lots of things, but my first sermon in a Unitarian Universalist congregation was on what? Do you know? Beethoven, of course. My very first sermon in a Unitarian Universalist congregation was about Beethoven and his music, because his music is a really, really beautiful example of how we can continue to grow throughout our lives. Beethoven's music starts out great, and it gets more profound and sublime, reflective of his own spiritual growth during his own lifetime. So music, classical music, really, really touches my heart and soul. It's my sacred text. Late Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, those guys. But I'm just inspired by so many things in the world. I think mostly other people inspire me. And a lot of times I find that the people that I'm inspired by are members of this congregation. The lives you lead and the things you do inspire me. I'm thinking about, I'm preparing a memorial service for Marion Dearman, July 31st, and been reading about his life. He started off as he dropped out of high school at 15. He went off to become a printer, and a tramp printer, and he eventually became a PhD in sociology, teaching in sociology. But just learning about his life and all that he did, it's just incredible. So you guys inspire me. So thank you for doing that. Divisiveness is alienating our denomination, no matter where you stand on issues of anti-racist beliefs and approaches. Denial of marginalization drives away people, as does unnuanced idea of accountability. Is there a middle way to integrate all these perspectives and suggest a mutual direction? Just to get you up to speed, in case this question might puzzle you a little bit, all religious movements go through challenging moments when they're trying to define who they are and where they're going. And Unitarian Universalism is experiencing some struggles and some conflicts right now. And I'm in the middle of it a lot of times these days. And I think this question is really well framed. I like it. It's a good question, because Unitarian Universalism is and always has been dedicated to doing whatever we can to, I don't know which word to use, dismantle, eradicate, undercut racism, attitude that demeans and diminishes so many people. And so lately, some leaders in our association have been taking a very, very, I would call it, militaristic, zealous approach to anti-racism work, because they believe so strongly in it. And I get that. I'm glad to see that kind of passion. However, I don't think that the techniques they're using are going to be effective. I think they're going to be counter-effective, and that's why I don't like them. But I think that it's a troubling time right now, because unless there's a willingness to have dialogue and discussion and listen to various points of view, it's problematic. And right now, we're having a hard time doing that. And I hope that we can, I say we, I mean all of us, not just me, but people who are more engaged in that militaristic approach, we see things differently. And I actually would love to have a good conversation. I don't enter into these conversations with the thought that I'm right and you're wrong. It's like I have strong feelings and ideas, but I really want to learn. I really want to learn, and I really want to understand. And I know that there's a lot that I don't understand. I'm a white man, and I've grown up in a society, and I have a certain perspective, and I recognize that that limits me in some ways. And I really do want to help create a community here where everybody feels welcome and included, no matter who you are. And doing that takes a lot of work for a congregation, because there are things that you can do unwittingly and unconsciously to make somebody feel marginalized. And so I think that I appreciate the passion on the drive of wanting to create Unitarian Universalism and anti-racism religion. I'm just troubled by the aggressiveness and the intolerance with which that's being undertaken. And so the best that I can do is to try to model tolerance and openness and a willingness to listen and understand myself, and hope that will help us in this process. Where is your happy place, your sacred space? Well, I have a really nice garden. We're working on our garden, and it's moving in the direction of being a place where that's a really sacred space for me. I'm here a lot during the week by myself. I'll be working on a sermon or something, and I'll just be looking around this building, and I'll realize that it was all built. The land was bought, and the whole thing was built by donations, by generous donations of members here. And it's such a beautiful place. I really love, this is a sacred place for me. And I love that we make it sacred by the way we are here together. Finally, if you've ever been to Clear Lake, how many of you have been to Clear Lake? Whoa, you need to get up to Clear Lake, people. It's so clear, it's beautiful. But anyway, there's a spring off from Clear Lake that feeds Clear Lake. It's this beautiful, deep, clear water spring, and I love being there. That feels like a sacred space to me. So I think you can make almost any space a sacred space if you're there in the right frame of mind. What do you think of the medieval literary practice of using macabre images of the dead, and how did that influence the layman as well as the theologian? If you see that, you ever seen the gargoyles on the cathedrals, and you might wonder, why are they putting these ugly creatures up here? What's going on with this? But look at Buddhist iconography or Hindu iconography, and you'll see some scary looking stuff. And you can wonder, what's going on here? Why is there such a fierce image, a demon or something, or a dead person? And it's to shake us up. It's to get us to think about life and death, and the fact that as human beings living in this world, we're posed with big questions. And I think that in the Middle Ages, that was to shake people up and say, you better get saved because you're going to die. But I think that there's a spiritual practice, memento mori. I may not be saying it right, but it's remembering your death. Remembering your death is a very life-affirming thing to do, because you can remember that you're going to die, and remembering that, you realize, well, then I sure as hell don't want to waste today. I want to live fully today, because that seems it is paradoxical, but thinking of death is actually a very life-affirming thing to do if it's looked at honestly and not fearfully. Who said the following quote, and what do you think it means? Only the pure of heart can make good soup. That's from the Campbell's Soup Company. That is, no. I think that the thought is that we really have a lot more impact on the world than we sometimes think we do in our daily lives and the simple motions that we go through. If you have somebody making your soup for you and they're not happy as they're chopping the onions and they're, blah, 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 they're blah, blah. I don't know that if they followed the recipe that the soup still wouldn't be good. But somehow the idea of having the soup prepared by somebody who was loving what they were doing and were loving the people that they were going to serve the soup to just somehow gives it a little extra magic. And so only the pure of heart can make good soup. You know who said that? Do you know who said that? Because I sure don't. Let me know when you figure it out. In your experience, what is the most challenging part of being a minister, and what is the most rewarding part? The most challenging part is when I've had to be with people who have lost young ones. And it's heartbreaking and scares me, reminds me of all the things that can happen, and to be present with people during a really, really hard time like that. I don't try to be, what shall I say? I cry when I'm faced with a situation with the people. We have to weep together. It's hard to be with people during these times, but it's good. It's fulfilling at the same time, knowing that you're there and you're representing something larger than yourself, and it brings people some measure of comfort. I would have said years ago the challenging part of being a minister is dealing with conflicts. We actually, I think we do pretty good here. We have conflicts like any other community, but I think we have pretty good ways of handling them in healthy ways so that we have an opportunity to get through that. The most ongoing challenge, hard challenge of being a minister is writing sermons, really coming up with ideas, trying to form them into meaningful messages that can help you in your life. The most rewarding part of the ministry is the people, getting to work with people. As I often think, it's a good life I've had. I'm in my 35th year of ministry, and I've met so many wonderful people. I just have this, I can close my eyes and I can just see tons and tons of wonderful people. And I don't have any bad memories. I really don't. There's some people with troubled souls and cause conflicts, but there's no ill will, and mostly just love. Just all the incredible, wonderful people that I get to be with. So that's great. Here's one. Why did Beethoven get rid of his chickens? They kept saying, "Bok, bok, 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 bok." That wasn't my joke, by the way. Somebody else gave me that one. I thought I did a pretty good job with it, frankly, but you'll see. If you could go back in time and talk to yourself, and talk to your little kid self, what advice would you give yourself? I would say, be okay with who you are. Don't think that who you are is not okay. I know you're not like everybody else, and actually nobody else is either, but trust yourself. You're a good kid, and you're going to find your way. It's I know you're not exactly interested in the same thing that the other boys are interested in all the time. You're not into sports. You're a little different there, but trust your own instincts. Trust yourself to find your way in life, and stop worrying so much. Stop worrying so much, And we need help with your math and chemistry homework. Just ask for it, okay? Don't try to do everything by yourself. So I could go on in that vein. I think that'd probably be like a sermon to think about. What would, or a good meditation for any of us. What would you say to your younger self? That's a great question. A good one to think about. What do you think happens after we die? Well, in most cases here, there's a memorial service. We know that. I'm being flippant here. Let me preface this by saying that Unitarian Universalists don't have a doctrine or a creed about the afterlife. I tend to find myself gravitating towards Eastern religious traditions that posit that there's something within us that transcends the seeming finality of death, but it's also a little different than I think where the traditional image in our culture is that we have a self-contained soul that when we die, that self-contained identity goes up and is in some good place or some terrible place. I don't think it's quite like that. I think it's a mystery. I've been with people when they died, and it's just sort of always a sacred moment, but also a wondering moment. You know, the physicists say that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, and each person is a form of energy. And so I can't help but feel that somehow our good energy, our love, it continues in this world in various ways beyond my understanding. But I don't have a very negative view of death. I don't, think, oh my God, rage against the dying of the light. Don't. That's Dylan Thomas poem. That's not my attitude towards death at all. I think it's something that we can accept and not be afraid of. If you had to choose one, which would you prefer? Watching a sunrise or a sunset? Well, I don't like to get up early, so I guess I like the sunset because apart from the getting up early, the beauty of the sunset and the sun sinking down, I just like that feeling, that time. It reminds me of the transitoriness of life, but in a good way. And I also like the idea of the sun disappearing so the world can rest, so that we can catch our breath and start again. And there's a sweet goodbye of the sun when it sinks into the horizon. So I like the sunset the best. How are we doing on time? Huh? Okay. I've been told I could stop at any time, so I'll stop with. I'll see if I can find one that looks good, and then we'll maybe end up with that one. Who are some of the people, dead or alive, whose wisdom and lessons have been good guidance? Well, I think that I've had, I was lucky to have a good mom, and I think I got a good sense of what it is to love people and the importance of love in our lives. It was a messy family life, a very messy and painful family life in many ways, but I think I got that core of understanding of love for other people. I find that I'm a biography reader. I like to read historical biographies because I really like to study the lives of people who do touch and inspire me. I've read about Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and my favorite Unitarian minister, Samuel Joseph May. I love the spiritual writings of Thomas Merton and the writings of Thich Nhat Hanh. And did I mention Beethoven yet? Beethoven is huge for me, I really do treasure the collected wisdom of humankind in the world's religious traditions. I think there's something to be found in all those traditions that can guide us as Unitarian Universalists. That's actually one of the primary reasons I became a Unitarian Universalist, because I like to have access to all the wisdom traditions of humankind and to feel like I can draw from them and inspire me in my life. And I do. So I have no idea how long I've been talking up here. It seems to me like I started 2 minutes ago. I think your perception is probably different. And so I'd like to just invite you to a time of reflection, prayer, meditation, opening the windows of your soul to the infinite. Settle into this place, this moment, and feel the windows of your soul opening to life, opening to love, opening to wonder and joy. May our hearts and our minds remain open and welcoming, so that we may have rich and full lives, so that we may journey together in friendship and peace. May it be so.
We support UUCS through pledges, time, and connections with one another. We also support the Salem community with donations to the Marion Polk Food Share. Each month, we share your Sunday donations with an organization that exemplifies our principles. For June, it is the Nellie Thompson Dorothy Patch Scholarship Fund, named for two champions of social justice, equality, and education in Salem. Reverend Nellie Thompson, founder of the Pauline Memorial AME Zion Church, and Dorothy Patch, teacher and community activist, teamed up over 40 years ago to find ways to improve Salem's racial climate. In honor of their legacy, the Thompson Patch Scholarship Fund provides financial assistance to Salem area ethnic minority students to go to college or trade school. For the past 22 years, the fund has helped students who have faced obstacles in their lives and who have shown promise and resilience by overcoming adversity. Please send your checks, those are there online, to UUCS, or visit the website as shown in the slide to donate, or leave your donation in the basket in the foyer as you leave. It's just outside the doors. You can also make a donation directly to the Thompson Patch Scholarship Fund by visiting its website. Thank you for your generous support of this congregation and the wider community.
In the quiet,
Did you hear that? You can see the virtual.
when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, and the sky is clear and red, when the summer season is gleaming, when the corn is first is dry, when adventure's lost its meaning.
extinguish the chalice, we transfer the flame to the social justice lantern as a symbolic reminder of the love and hope we carry out into the world.
There's a Zoom gathering at 2 p.m. this afternoon if you'd like to socialize with some people. Someday we're going to have fellowship hour in the fellowship hall, but for right now, it's still the Zoom fellowships at 2 p.m. on Sunday afternoons. Give you a chance to connect with other people. Let's see if there's any other announcements. Not sure there is. Let's see. Something got canceled. The second service today got canceled, so because it's too hot, and we're going to go home and cool off. If you see news of the community online, you can see various announcements that might interest you. If you're a woman going on the women's retreat, for example, they're still collecting returnable bottles to build a scholarship fund. That sounds like fun. I don't know when the retreat's going to be, but we'll get it going. Okay, that's a good one. Barbara's reminding me that next week service is at 10:30, so we'll be returning to one service at 10:30, and it's not going to be this hot this next Sunday, I hope. I don't think it will be. I think that you can read the other announcements on our website and check out things. Be sure to get engaged and involved. That's good enough for now.
And since our projector is taking the rest of the morning off, if you want to sing along with Love Will Guide Us, Janet's got some hymnals. Please raise your hand if you want to grab a hymnal and sing along. Otherwise, I invite you to dance. Our closing hymn today is Love Will Guide Us. It's number 131, 131, 131 in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body or spirit. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Let us join hands in body and spirit, saying these words together. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.